I'll share my screen and we'll make a start.
Is this all we got, Mick?
No, we've got about 8. So hopefully we get a good number. So hopefully you guys can see my screen okay there.
Yep.
Fantastic. So this is the Learning Journey, Introduction to Writing Assessments. My name's Mick Wyther, and I'll be with you for the next, about 2 months, 2.5 months or so. I tend to flip these sessions a little bit and throw it over to you guys as much as I can, mainly because your experience will help each other, and it's probably more important than my rabbiting on. But if I do rabbit on, just give me a message or an emoticon or something and tell me to move it on. That's no drama at all. But I do really like the kind of opportunity to be able to use these as professional conversations between yourselves. And because you've got a lot of experience, that's what we can all learn from, I think, is the most important thing. So I start off by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're on today. Each of us have a different one, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And I live here in Ballarat, and I'm very close to the state forest, and there's a lot of evidence of those prior custodians who are still with us and quite active in Ballarat, I have to say, and in a lot of areas, education and art and all sorts of things, and community. So work health and safety considerations, that's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you've heard all these. Getting your set up on your computer right and on a chair. You've all got here. I'm pretty sure you've all got a bit of experience with Zoom. You all got here without too many ways. Philip gave us a magnificent demonstration of background lighting, eliminating that. So we didn't. It looked good actually, because look, I thought for a minute we were talking to someone from Colombia, the cartel, but that's not how it is. So look, I thought we would start by and I've just lost my controls. Just give me a sec to find out where they've gone, so I can see if anyone else has joined us. And I think we have. Hello, Jane. Morning, Jane. Just checking it. Yeah.
Hello.
How are you? We've just made a start. We've kind of met each other here, but that's all good. We can we'll get a chance to introduce each other before we get started. But look, I'm going to start with a bit of an icebreaker with you, and I'm hoping you've all been able to use the annotation tools before in Zoom. So this is a chance for you to actually write text on the board. And so the question I'm going to ask you is, what do you think assessment is? I don't know to be a formal definition, but what is your understanding of assessment? Don't have to paste in a definition you find on the web. Just think what it is from your point of view. Now, if you go up to your Zoom controls, you may have a thing there called view options, where you can choose annotate, but you also might have it on your Zoom bar as well. When you hover over that little green spot on the top of your screen, you might have an annotation in there, or it might be under more, or it might be under view options. Everybody seems to be a little bit different. So just sing out if you can see that. It'll give you a bit of time to find that. And once you select the annotation tools, you should be able to find a text tool. It's a whole heap of drawing tools and all sorts of things that lets you type on the screen like this. And I'm pretty sure you would have used these tools before. So I'll give you a second to find them. It's kind of 2 problems there, isn't it? Finding the text tool and then defining assessment. And I'll just check if I've got any emails from anybody trying to get in. That's all good.
Can I see your emails? We can now see your screen.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was just checking to see. I forgot I was sharing. I've had a bit of trouble with Zoom, and so people have been struggling to get in. So I'll have to keep checking for the first 10 minutes in case I get an email. There we go. Beautiful. I don't have any prizes here. Oh, I could probably give this. Probably send this in the mail. That might be useful. Oh, we've got a couple there. That's great. So we've got a nice kind of, this is a nice formal definition. This is good. The beauty tree. Oh, that's nice. I like this one. Checking what you know from a unit. Knowledge and skills are those two things that we talk about kind of separately, but they're very intertwined. And that ability to perform in the workplace to a particular standard as defined by the competency, I guess, is the key. And this one, a method for gathering. So there's quite a good relationship between all those three. We've got some pretty good components. Anybody else want to have a crack? And thanks, Kerry. How you going there, Kerry? Are you able to find that annotations tool okay?
Not yet.
If you can't, feel free to just put into the chat. If you can find the chat, oh, you found the chat, okay. So you can put your answer into the chat if you can't find it.
I'm using the web browser option of Zoom. I don't know. My whole screen is just.
It's a funny word, annotate. I don't know whether it's can call it drawing. Oh, we've got another one. Assessing the knowledge and skills of the student. Although we've used the word assessing in there, so it's interesting. It's hard to find another word, isn't it? Gathering is good, checking, determining. They're all good words.
I suppose when you get caught up with, you know, when we're in this job, everyone knows what assessment is, don't they? So I suppose.
You hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sometimes the thing is that, you know, we sometimes don't, you know, talk about these kind of concepts to ensure that we're using some sort of common understanding of what it is and what it's not. And I guess as we look at assessment practice overall, then we start to see that there isn't that shared understanding of kind of what it is. And often it's a result of maybe not having the total responsibility for an assessment tool. We often use tools that are given to us, and that's it. That's that. That's great. Thank you. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to save that. All right, we've got a good kind of understanding. That's right. I can probably finish now, which is kind of good. But let's have a look at what the standards say about what assessment is. And we've got to do a bit of quick rearranging here. And I'm going to share this document with you as well. Good on you, Coretta. Oh, that's a beauty. Yep, informing, isn't it? It's very much about judgment, making a judgment, but using a format that really helps us to make an informed judgment, and a judgment that would probably be made by similar people if they were in that position. So you're pretty close there. This process of collecting evidence, making judgments, whether you've achieved that competency. Assessment system is often something we don't have control of. We work underneath the policies and procedures you might have around assessment, RPL, those kinds of things. They're not really the subject of this learning journey, but the last one is, and that's the assessment tool. We're going to be working on these through the process. Assessment tool might be the 2 or 3 assessments that it takes to complete a unit, and an instrument is the actual assessment task itself. So we're going to be working at that level of that instrument. We'll be creating in this program an assessment tool that will serve the entire components of your particular unit. That's the kind of the aim. Now put that link in there, and I'll email you the document as well. It's quite a good document that because it talks a bit about how you can set up and develop an assessment. We don't need to go into that kind of level of formality or compliance in this particular program, but it's an interesting document. Thank you. Good. All right, so let's find out a bit about you, and I'll just check my email again because I'm a bit worried that people are not going to be able to make it. That's all good. They're in. And so I'm going to go around the room and get you to. I've met most of you if you've come in, but maybe just to find out a little bit about each of you, professional experience, and then we can find out and get a good sense of who's in the room. Now, Jane, we might start with you because most of us had a bit of a chat before you arrived, if that's okay.
Okay, so Sharon Beattie, I work for the accounting department, as I mentioned. I've been at Chisholm for too long, 27 years. So I've been around forever. I feel like I've been around forever. So, and I've taught in all areas of, as I said, certificate 4 diploma, advanced diploma of accounting. I also have had a lot to do with RPLs and teaching in China and trainees and off-campus students, so a whole gamut of things. I have a accounting degree, and I did start working with Price Waterhouse when I first graduated as an auditor, and I hated it. Everybody hates the auditors. We all have a negative attitude towards auditors, even though auditors are just doing their job. So I decided that I wasn't sure I really liked accounting full stop, and I ended up going and working in a secondary school and did a bit of careers advising.
You're right.
Which I sort of fell into teaching careers lessons. And then I thought, you know what, I like this teaching, and I do like the accounting, the practice of accounting. Let's see, I heard that you could get a job at Chisholm without, all you needed was a qualification. So away I went and have been teaching ever since.
Oh, good on you.
Sorry,
go on.
Sorry. I was going to say, I guess there's a couple of interesting things about myself there and my expectations. Look, as most of you probably have done, I've written quite a few assessments in my time. We've recently been through the QUIP program, which is a quality improvement program, where a department looked at all of our assessments with an absolute magnifying glass. And we had to rewrite a lot of assessments that ended up just becoming so big and cumbersome that it's ridiculous. The amount of assessments the students have to do is ridiculous just to tick off on all of those knowledge and evidence, performance evidence elements and performance criteria. So I think you can always improve on assessment writing, and any help or any education I can get about it is certainly going to be beneficial to me in the long run and to my students.
Well, thank you, Jane. And I'm going to say I'm not very precious. So if there's anything that I put out there that goes against what you've kind of been working with, or you just interrupt and say, that's no drama. Hey, 27 years.
Yeah.
I walk in the door. I wish I was a young, fresh trainer. What would be the advice you would give them with that kind of experience?
Hang in there. Hang in there, because seriously, trying to navigate your way as a sessional teacher, navigate your way around Chisholm's policies, procedures, the way they do things, hoops you have to jump through. It's just a matter of hanging in there and just enjoy your teaching experience, and the other stuff around you that you have to do will become second nature in the end, but just enjoy your teaching experience.
Yeah, and suffer the best.
Yeah,
good advice. Thank you. Coretta.
Hi. Yeah. So my name is Coretta Kings Onekon. Some of my friends call me CK for short. CK for Coretta Kings. So I'm a nurse, been a nurse for about 11 years. Done some teaching overseas for about 6 years, but I'm new to teaching nurses in Australia. That is something I'm passionate and I really like. So when I came to Australia, when I migrated, I thought, I really like teaching. That's what I was doing in my country, teaching nurses. But I knew I couldn't go into teaching in Australia when I've not done nursing in the field as well, just to get the context of Australian nursing and what it is, because I mean, it's still nursing, but there are some differences that come with different countries. So I worked in Australian wards and hospitals, Epworth, Richmond, and Homestead Private Hospital. So I did some nursing there for about 3 years plus. And then I did my certificate 4 in teaching and assessment, because I found that was a requirement to start teaching in Australia. yeah, so and then I applied to Chisholm to teach. So I'm basically just about 2 months into Chisholm. So
Oh, wow.
I'm very, very inspired by by Sharon's 27 years. Yeah, so that's basically it about me. So I'm looking forward to further improve my skills in teaching, in assessment, because it's something that I really like doing. I just think that if I get better at it, I just become more fulfilled doing what I like and doing it well. Yeah. And so very excited to learn, to join this learning journey and to learn from you guys and share experiences.
It sounds like you've
Two
already had a
interesting
wonderful
things.
learning journey already.
Two interesting things about me. Well, I don't know what to say. I like singing.
Yeah.
It gives me peace. I was teaching the students the other day about complementary therapy, and I found music as a complementary therapy that we could include in our practice and get our patients feel better, helps them to relax. So I was like, oh, that's good, because I like music, I like teaching, I like singing as well. Also, I have 3 kids, and it's been difficult trying to get them to get engaged in their learning, study, and do my own work as well. Yeah, but you find that when before you think that it was not possible to get them to learn from home and still work from home, but when you find yourself placed in a situation where you really have no choice, and then you find yourself doing it, so it's a good way to look at life, that everything is possible. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you've sound like you've got a long history of adapting to the situation that you've made for yourself. And
Yeah.
and you know, I know I hear what you're saying about only being a couple of months in, but I think, you know, sometimes we don't we don't focus enough on the fact that for most of our students, we are the learning content in terms of how they come to understand it, our presence, our explanations, our ability to be able to customize it to each particular student as we get to know them is a really important skill, being a trainer, because, you know, you might flail on other things, but if you've got that connection with students, then I think that's a really important thing, and which determines whether a student has a good or a bad experience, I think, with their learning. Good on you. Well, welcome. And well, I think there's a lot to learn from Sharon, or from Jane there, and probably Sharon and Philip as well, but also from you as well, because you've got that industry experience in a variety of different environments and nations. So good on you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, mate.
Kerry.
Yeah, like I guess I was saying earlier, I've been in hairdressing now for probably 30 something years. I think I stopped counting after I got to about 30. And obviously I've been teaching with Chisholm now for about 11 years, I think. So I started off as a sessional teacher, so doing more hairdressing, a few days sessional, and then that eventually transitioned to when they offered me a contract. So I was doing, you know, Monday to Thursday on a 0.8 contract, and then less hairdressing. So I'm particularly interested in learning more about the assessment side of things. I was lucky enough to be asked to be a part of a new development of our Certificate 2 program, which was also managed by the QUIP. And that was after obviously doing the Cert 4 upgrade. And I found with the Cert 4 upgrade, I was probably one of the only people, I think, in my department, I don't know, maybe all of Chisholm, that actually really, really enjoyed it. I never have ever been the academic in that way. I've always been practical and hands-on. So when I started to learn more, obviously I did my Cert 4, 11 years ago, but that sort of didn't really teach me anything. It wasn't until I got to this upgrade that I actually felt that I was able to understand it all a little bit more, even though I was doing it. Yeah, so, and we've developed this Cert 2 program. So I want to just improve on what we've been doing there. I think I mentioned in my intro that instructions are my weakness. and I tend to sort of sometimes put things a little bit back the front. So I'm hoping for some strategies to help me with that kind of thing, because I'm finding that that's the area that I struggle. I love what I do, obviously, with my students. I teach apprentices, so they're all obviously in salons. What else can I say? So interesting thing about me, obviously, with my teaching would be our classrooms. So our classrooms aren't run where everyone is up to the same level. Our classrooms are run where everyone is at a different level. So I might have 4 new students start. We have different intakes through the year. I might have 4 new students start that are at the beginning, and then I might have 4 that are about to finish. And then I've got a whole lot of mix in between. So I'm actually constantly adapting myself depending on the situation and the student that I'm delivering. So that's pretty interesting. That's probably about it, really.
No, that's incredible. So you've I was going to ask you what are the areas you wanted to improve on. You mentioned the instructions, and we talked a little bit about that in the assessment learning journey and creating assessments, because in the digital environment, students aren't going to, well, any environment, they're not going to read very much. So that is a really big part of getting it right and getting out of that kind of institution or compliance bit to treat it as you would treat like a task that you might be trying to demonstrate to a student.
Yeah. I find it all swims around in my head, and then getting it down on the paper is where I need a bit more of a process. I like processes and particular ways to do it. And maybe that's because of my hairdressing background. There has to be a step, there has to be different steps to obviously getting there practically. So yeah.
And that's probably a good way of looking at it, the steps, and then try and break those steps down so that they're clear and concise and plain English so that people can, this is the steps. And sometimes you've got 50 steps is the only problem. And that's probably where you look at your task. But yeah, okay. Well, I mean, part of what we have here is an opportunity to provide feedback to you as well for all those things. And instructions are only one part of the assessment learning journey, but in this one, we'll do a number of times as you submit different types of assessments for your kind of hurdle. So yeah. All right. So what would be your bit of advice to the likes of, Coretta and other trainers that are kind of new to Chisholm, based on your kind of experience?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was talking to you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was replying to Coretta in the chat, and I just zoomed out for a second. So, sorry, can you ask that question again for me?
Oh, I was going to say.
We're just trying to find the annotate for her.
Oh, good on you. Look, that's all. I'll let you.
I'm doing more than one thing.
I'll let you do that, and then we'll maybe get an opportunity. I was really just asking you what advice you would give to someone new who's starting off training based on your experience.
Oh, someone new. Talk to as many people as you can. Talk to your other trainers, assessors, get their take on things, what works, what doesn't work. One thing, which is probably a bad thing, when I did first start teaching, I knew my trade, I guess, but I didn't know how to sort of teach it as such. And I was pretty much just thrown in at the deep end. There was no real mentoring there. So it was sort of, I had to think on my feet, which is one thing that hairdressers are good at doing. But yeah, I just asked questions. I asked for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and draw as much out as you can from other teachers. They will help you. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Good on you. Cheers. Philip.
Oh, yes. So my name's Phil. You can call me Phil for short. I'm a cabinet maker. So if you're not familiar with that, that's someone who builds your kitchens and your bathrooms and laundries and furniture. Quite often people get us mixed up with carpenters. So carpenters, they build houses, you know, fit out houses, all that sort of stuff. So there's a distinct difference between the two. I've been with Chisholm for 24 years,
Ooh.
and it's been a long haul. My teaching experience is I teach Cert 3s, I've taught Cert 2s, VCAL, and even your basic night classes, where I used to run hobby classes of a night for mostly mums, because when the hobby class was around at that time, that's when Better Homes and Gardens started, and then that's when everyone started wanting to make stuff. So, so I currently reside at our Dandenong campus. I was at the Frankston campus for 19 years, and we felt there was a need to move into the Dandenong area, and there was room for us. So I was one of the first teachers to start our pilot program with students running cabinet making from Dandenong in our carpentry workshops there. So we started off very small, you know, just with your basic one group, and I was teaching, you know, one day at Dandenong and then the other two at Frankston, and then the manager would say, get the numbers up, and we'll give you your workshop, we'll give you your own machinery, we'll give you this, give you that, and sort of that's where we are at the moment. So we've got I'm full time at Dandenong now. They basically gave it to me. They said, it's your baby.
Fantastic.
So the baby's just been born. Our workshops have just been set up with our part of the $6 million renovation grant that Chisholm required. I've got 2 brand new machines being installed today, which I can say proudly that I got the grant for $98,000. So we got 2 machines that were being put in. So it's been very hectic, so to speak, the last couple of weeks, getting the workshop online and also having minimal disruptions for the classes. So what else is there? So we have been doing, when COVID first came in, we were doing Zoom, which is very hard with a trade-based qualification. And let's face it, most of the students that do a trade-based qualification, they're not academics. So the last thing they want to be doing is sitting in front of a computer and us asking them to do portfolios, which was a huge undertaking for some students. Some students don't even have laptops. So some of them don't even want to touch a computer. So it was very challenging, during those times.
Hey, so you made an interesting point about you got given the kind of direction to make it work and get the numbers. How did you do that?
It was very hard. I had to share workshops with carpentry classes. I had to coordinate around them. Sometimes the class wasn't in the same workshop, it was in another workshop. It was basically, how would you say, flying by the seat of your pants type of thing.
But how did you get the students into the program? Did you have to go and actually spruik for them or find them?
Yeah, well, what we did is when students signed up for their apprenticeship, we had a look at their Epsilon, or it was called a Delta then, and we'd look at their demographic. So we'd say, oh, okay, you live in Pakenham. Dandenong's easier for you to get to. Let's send you to, And then some of the existing students that we're currently training, we gave them the opportunity to change campuses if they lived in the Dandenong area. We said, oh, we're running cabinet making at Dandenong, so go to there. So
I was going to thank you and say hello to Nathan, but before you go, I'm glad you made it, Nathan. I'll ask you the question. 24 years is a good bat. What's your kind of advice you'd give to me if I was walking in the door ready to train?
It's rewarding with the students. That's take as much out of that as you possibly can, because a lot of the other stuff can really weigh you down, and make you question why you're doing this job. And I'm being honest, straight up and honest, but, you know, like Kerry said before, ask questions, work with, you know, experienced staff, because we've all been there. So we're all very happy to share, because basically most of us get thrown in the deep end. We basically get, there's your class, there's your role, teach, you know, basically that's the way I got inducted into it. So I mentor a teacher at the moment. So it's basically, he's got his own class, I've got my own class, but also the way I feel, I've got 2 classes plus a teacher. that's the way I am now. But
Yeah.
I keep saying to myself, hang in there. The time that you put into this guy is going to come into fruition one day, and it already has. This guy's smashing it. He's all over it. So I'm mentoring him. He quite often messages me, you know, at night and after class, and, you know, it can be quite draining sometimes, but I just got to keep saying to myself, this is all for the good for our area, because the more time I put into him, the better teacher he's going to be in the future. So
It's a really interesting thing, that mentoring. Like, you know, the organisations have done studies of where people learn and how they learn, and it sort of suggests that, you know, once people have got their kind of trade, they solve their own problems, but the next source they get is from others, you know, like colleagues, whether they're experienced or not, or, you know, at the same level, we learn so much from each other. So yeah, it's a shame that the sort of mentoring is not a more formal process that's initiated throughout the education sector, because, you know, you see lots of experience locked away in offices and things, just getting it out. And we've got some amazing experience in here, given all of your longevity in there. But thanks, Philip. Now, Nathan, welcome to you. Hopefully you can hear us okay, and what we've kind of been doing.
I can hear you.
Oh, good on you.
Hi,
I hope you
guys.
didn't have too much trouble getting in.
No, I just had to put in a password, but that's all good.
Ah, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
let me get this study Zoom right, I can tell you. Well, we're just introducing ourselves.
Okay.
So I'll hand it over to you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'm a chef by trade. I've been in the industry for 24 years. Started when I was 16, and about 6 years ago, myself and my wife ended up having kids, and I thought, well, chefing industry isn't conducive to having a family. So I thought I'll become a trainer and assessor. And it's worked out amazing. I love the job that I have now, and I would recommend it to anyone, to tell you the truth. So I've been with Chisholm for about 4 years now. I went into the private sector at the start, and it was great, but, you know, there was a lot of enforcement from the government on the private sector at that point, and they were shutting a lot of them down. So I thought, to be safe, go into the Chisholm sector, government sector, and I've got a couple of kids in the back at the moment. They've just finished school.
I think we all have. And I've got a little puppy in the background who's sitting in the sun, ready to bark at any moment.
So I've been involved in assessment writing in the last year, I would say, more than a year. So the hospitality department, they've changed their resources. So we've gone from a private provider to another one, but that other private provider decided to just give us templates. So we've created basically our own resource in hospitality, and we're still in the process. So I think this is going to be excellent for me. I'm going to really enjoy it. I'm in the process of creating workplace program resources, so contextualizing them. Yeah.
So that's like fun.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah, it's fun.
Well, there's a couple of things that you've said in there that kind of, I think, reinforced the learning journey for me. And it is very much about attempting to have a bit of fun with these assessments and to, looking at a unit that you'd really like to revisit and deliver again with some really different and new assessments. And that's kind of the purpose of it. It's not really to, tick off some compliance boxes. I'm trying to be really creative, get that out, attempt a few different types of assessment, and then maybe back step then once you've done that, have those conversations about aligning them to compliance.
And I'm halfway through my diploma now, so that's
Yeah, okay.
games as well. So that, a lot of the stuff I suppose we'll be talking about is related directly to that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, it sounds like you're all a very experienced group. I'm feeling a bit intimidated now. I'm hoping I can be able to get a little of this, but I should probably talk a bit about myself. And thanks, Nathan. So I've had really two education careers, I guess. I worked in a neighbourhood house for about 15 years. So when I first started, it was very much around services for women and kids. And while we maintained that part of the service, we slowly began to build some educational services for local community, mainly around adult literacy and numeracy and life skills. And then gradually when computers and stuff came in, we realised that there was a bit of a opportunity for us there in terms of mainly women with kids to be able to pick up some new skills, get back into the workforce. And we sort of adopted a hands-on approach compared to our, bigger rivals, I guess, who would talk about the computer being a box and the mouse and how the screen works and RAM and all this stuff that, doesn't really matter. We don't do that with fridges or mix masters or microwave ovens. We just use them. So that's kind of approach we took, and that seemed to really quite well. And we did hear from Jane, I think, didn't we? We started with Jane, I think.
Started with me, I think. Sharon.
Yeah. Did I miss someone?
Me, I haven't spoken yet.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I'll get out of the way after this and then I'll chuck it over to you. So that got me into digital learning and then professional development. And then I left and my partner and I set up an RTO. We had that for about 10 years. He's a videographer. So we were mainly doing things around screen media and also e-learning, because at that time I was at a diploma of e-learning from the business services training package. It's no longer around, but some of the units that are in there are also now on the diploma, facilitate e-learning and design e-learning resources, but they're pretty much the same unit as they were like 15 years ago, believe it or not. Although there is a new e-assessment unit coming along. It's in draft form at the moment. And we sold that at about 10 years ago when it became really kind of difficult for a smaller provider to survive. And we've just been mainly doing development and consulting. So I write a lot of courses. I've written a stack of courses over the last 3 or 4 years in every kind of area. I don't know anything about it, most of them, but usually got a subject matter expert to help me. And I do some assessment development work still, but mainly use assessment to inform the content is my main relationship. And as a result of that, got some good insights on how to improve assessments as I read them and think, what are we really trying to get out here? That should be in the content, that should be in the competency. All right, so that's me. 2 interesting things about me. I collect VFL glasses from the 1970s. I've got about 50 of those, rare ones. And I've just coming up to 10 years of having an autoimmune disease, which I thought was going to really knock me around and has, but hasn't stopped me from working. So it's an unusual one where your body creates too much collagen, and as a result, you kind of start to seize up with this kind of stuff. But mine's pretty much under control. I do have brain fogs every now and then. So if that's what happens, you could say it's age, he's his age, or you could be kind and say it's autoimmune disease. But it doesn't affect me too much day to day. All right, yeah. Well, sorry about that. Jane, better hand over to you.
It's all right. That's okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jane. I've been teaching secondary and primary English history for 25 years in New South Wales in the school system. Moved down here to the Melbourne area because my husband needed to move for work and thought I'd like to have a bit of a change. So I investigated looking at doing something else, but found out that I actually just love teaching when I went to a careers counsellor to talk about all the different things you might do other than the job you're doing. He said, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you're probably going to be a good teacher and you should stick at that. And I went, oh, but I've been doing that. So I decided to retrain in EAL. And so English as a second language. And so consequently did my Cert 4 at the same time and moved into the EAL with Chisholm, which I loved in Frankston, but then there were not many classes in Frankston because it's not such a high migrant area as the Dandenong area. And there was a need at the time in general education foundation, which is literacy and numeracy skills. And so I thought, well, that's pretty close to what I was doing before anyway, which I actually love because I always loved teaching the teenagers. And so I've been working in general education with Chisholm for 7 years. Also went to China for a year with assessing over there while I was in the AL. But I actually really love the general education because it's just so hands-on, working with people from all age groups from 15 years old through to, I've got 4 people who are in their 60s at the moment who want to brush up on literacy and numeracy in their life for one reason or another. To the teenagers that usually come in are disengaged from school and they've probably been from school to school, and then they feel their last option is to come to TAFE and leave the school system. And so they come in reluctantly often, but kind of knowing that it's their last shot to get their year 9 and then move on to their year 10 pass so that they can go on then to further certificates or on to year 11 and 12 with higher ed. So they often are have been bullied or are the bullier, or they're suffering from mental health issues and are withdrawn or depressed or anxious, sort of quite a range of different emotional situations, often a lot of trauma in their family backgrounds, consequently why they've dropped out of school in the first place. So they're usually quite challenging, but it's very rewarding when you do get them through their certificate and they feel, wow, I finally made it and I did get through and I do have my year 10 pass. So now I can actually start my further education into an area that they're interested in, which is wonderful to be at Chisholm and be able to offer and say, well, now you can head here into plumbing, or you can head into carpentry or cabinetry or nursing or wherever, which when they're at school, they get so bogged down sometimes and they just feel like they're so behind. And I've heard so many times when students turn up in my class, the school system is stuffed and no one understands me and I'm left behind and I can't learn and I'm not catered for. So when they come to us, we run an individualised program. What I think it was Kerry said something similar in that with your hairdressing, you have different hairdressers at different stages of their certificate levels. Well, in my class, I have certificate 1, certificate 2 or certificate 3, and we have rolling enrolments where they're coming in all the time, which I think is also probably a little bit similar to the plumbing, carpentry, and although all my individuals are coming in totally on their own, and I might have 1 or 2, 3, 4 students starting each week, and every week I can have a student starting and every week I can have a student finishing. So I'm not actually out the front of a class teaching. They come in and I get them settled in, and everybody in the class is working on a different certificate level, and I move around the class constantly, giving each student as much help or assistance as they need and do one-on-one tutoring teaching. And some students need lots of help, and I will spend 20 minutes, half an hour with each student doing them, teaching fractions, teaching percentages, teaching shape, teaching how to use capital letters, full stops, and how to write a paragraph. That sort of to that low level through to essay writing, projects, research, teach researching skills, teaching how to reference for essay writing, teaching how to use Excel and that sort of thing to do graphs. So other students will say, I'm okay, I'm working on this, and they power through. Another part of the cohort that come into our class are people who may have been in the workforce doing some kind of job that they've not been happy in their life, and they get to a point 10, 15 years later and go, you know what, I don't actually really like what I do, and I want to go and upskill, but I need to brush up on my literacy and numeracy. So they come into our class, may have only finished school in year 9 themselves or year 10, and then they feel that they need to brush up on their writing skills, their numeracy skills, to enable them to then move into the other certificates that are offered across Chisholm. So they're often quite anxious and, not feeling very good about how they're going to approach their course. So I feel a lot of what that we do is to help students feel enabled that they can actually enter the world of study and feel that you can do it if you put the effort in. And so it's a lot of relationship building in my class where we're trying to.
The point you made about trauma rings a bit of a bell for me, because I interviewed lots of prospective students over the years to transition into the literacy program here at the Neighbourhood House. And at that time, the certificates of general education for adults were just starting. And I just got this sense that trauma was a really big part of why people didn't learn. And so gradually when people came in, I just kind of used to cut to the chase and say to them, did you have something really significant happen to you when you were 5, 6 or 7 or 8? Yeah. And the majority of people would say, oh, yeah, my parents broke up, my father died, we moved for the 5th time, I got an illness. There would generally be some thing because, their siblings didn't have any issues. So trauma is a massive issue, I think, that's a bit uncovered. And we find
absolutely
informally. So with all that experience, Joan, I've asked this question to everybody else. What would be, I'd walk in the first day ready to be a trainer, and what advice would you give me?
From
your experience?
Be organised. Be organised. No, it is. I think that you've got to build that trust with your class. And if you are friendly and personable, approachable and organised, then you will engage them straight away to trust you. And then once you have their trust, you can then build on anything. The world is your oyster.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a really good, really, really good advice. Great. Well, I think that's everybody now, but Sharon, I know you're watching, and thank you very much for that. If I missed anybody, I don't think I have, but that's great. All right, well, that's a really nice thing to take a bit of time. I got a really bit in awe of you all, actually. It's got some fantastic, and I got a bit of a sense of what your expectations are from that. So I don't think we need to do that, but we can probably go on and make a bit of a start here and get into the program proper now, talking about being organised. So the objectives of the learning journey is probably where we should start in terms of what it is that we're going to do. And a lot of you have talked about the learner cohort and the importance of writing assessments for that. Sometimes we probably know what that is, already. In my paper, I usually get told who the cohort is, so that might influence how I write, or the examples that I might provide as case studies and scenarios and those kinds of things. And we had a bit of talk about this too, clear instructions for learners and assessors. I was working over the weekend doing a couple of high-level plans for some units that we developed into content and what the content might look like, and that content's got to address the assessments. When I look at the assessments, I'm thinking, I'm not really sure what that observation and instruction of the assessor is. What are we looking for? And I don't think it's there. And it also really clearly showed me where there was some stuff missing in the assessments that I would have to put into the content. Not that it's going to help the assessment, but it's really easy to kind of see those things. And developing a range of different assessment instruments, this is probably the most exciting part of the program, in that you get an opportunity each week for week kind of 2 to 5, I think, to, you know, create some different forms of assessment types. And I'll talk a bit more about those in a minute. And then reviewing and trialing assessment tools before you use them. So that's really about, you know, feedback and do they make sense and are they logical and clear. So that's really the overall, but I'm going to get into Tintax in a minute and tell you what it is that we're going to ask you to do in a couple of weeks ahead. And this is the kind of program that we've got for the next few weeks. It's going to be very much hands-on and giving you examples and those kinds of things. So this one here is where we are. I'm going to make a bit of a start today, but then each week we'll have a different focus on a different form of assessment, with an opportunity to unpack each one of those, and you will submit an example of those each week to get some feedback from me. And I'm going to ask you what your feeling is about this in a minute, how we do that. Role players, work-based projects, and third-party assessments and instruments as well. And then the last one, we're going to talk about bringing it all together. The reason I sort of mentioned that is that there'll be submission here, 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 and here. And in the e-assessment journey, we opened it up so that we could post those to discussion forums, so that each of you could see what the others were creating and learn from that. You would each see things that I won't see in one another's work that will help you. And I'll provide feedback really around the clarity and those kinds of things. So if we put in this discussion forum, you'll see one another's work. And I think that's important. My feedback won't be harsh. But are you comfortable with that? Are you all comfortable with that? It just seems to be a better way than uploading it to me. I look at them privately and respond to you, but I'm happy to go with you. If you're comfortable with that, then I'll set up a forum each week for you to submit those particular things. So I'm going to take that as a yes. You're okay with that? Oh, good. Okay. And if you're not, you can just email to me. That's no drama at all. So that's, it's kind of strange. Like, these are kind of part of the hurdles, but you'd be thinking about your unit that you might be choosing for this particular thing and having a crack at each one of those, and then maybe finalizing the 3 that you have to do to get the hurdle over the line. So it's kind of progressive task submissions that happen here. All right. So today we're going to talk about the components of a unit. Whoops, gone back too far there. Components of a unit. Principles, assessment, rules of evidence. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I'm sure you've been hit over the head with those. And we'll talk a bit about clear assessment instructions, maybe towards the end, if we get a bit of time, but that's probably something that we talk about next week when we actually get to the assessment types, because each one of these assessment types will have a different form of set of instructions for you to use. All right, so I'm going to do, I reckon we've got enough people to do this. I was a bit worried earlier, but what we might do is do a bit of a brainstorm, and to start off with a bit of an icebreaker, where we're going to ask you to think about an assessment. Let me clear all that stuff. An assessment nightmare. So I want you to think about a nightmare person in the assessment process. So think about all the ways that an assessor could be a nightmare in that thing. A nightmare place. So all the possible ways the environment or location of the assessment could be a bit of a nightmare for you. And then nightmare process. So all the possible ways the assessment process could be a nightmare. Now, some of you mentioned instructions. That could be a nightmare. You get all sort of questions. How we're going to do this, we're going to put you into breakout rooms 3. I'm just going to do that randomly and give you, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes to talk about those 3 things. And maybe someone could jot those down when we come back. So we want to see all the possible things that if you're conducting an assessment, doing it, what could be an absolute nightmare. People, places, and processes. Does that make sense? Do you kind of clear on that one?
Yep.
All right, cool. Let's see if I can get the breakout rooms going. So you're going to get chucked into a breakout room. I'm going to do this automatically. And what I will do is I'll come and paste in the instructions into the chat for you. So you've got them there. And and then that way I'll come and let you go, and then I'll come in about 5 minutes and see how you're getting on. So what's going to happen, you want to open the rooms now, you get a little button on the screen which will be asking you to join your particular room, and when you're ready, just select join and you'll be thrown in there. Beautiful. How you going, Coretta? Yeah, you're in. Fantastic.
Process.
That's just me. Don't be spooked. I'll just chuck it in the text chat for you. So
Yeah.
you've got the instructions. See you guys. Good luck.
Thanks.
Bye.
Here we go.
Hi there. I'll put the instructions in the chat for you.
Awesome.
Hopefully you can see them.
Chat. Okay. List all the possible ways of assessing.
Oh, you're good. I'll leave you to it. I'll come back in 5. If I can. There we go.
They might not want to show their face, so you can't see their facial expressions.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest problems I had with Zoom, was that I had a lot of them didn't want to show their face. So you're talking to a screen.
Blank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too. Sometimes I say, can you just show me your face today so I can make eye contact so I feel like you're a person? And then
the student is asked, even in the enrollment process, the student's asked, you know, have I got any disabilities and so forth. And when the student doesn't put that in, or they don't get the assistance or the help, which is an issue.
I hear you, Nathan. Like sometimes I get students in my
Hey, massive arrival. Welcome back. How'd you go? I dropped in, and unfortunately the recording follows me, so it sounds like you're being you're under surveillance, but that's not the case. I promise I do not hand these videos over to anybody.
That's all right.
Except Asia. So
Your brother is watching.
so did someone want to share what your nightmare person might have been?
I had one. I had a student, it wasn't my student, but it was something that I was witness to, a student that came in for an assessment. She had struggled to get through the program. She had a lot of mental health issues. She came in prepared, ready to go, brought her assessment model in, and then the assessor that she had on the day was different to the one that she was used to. And then when she explained to the assessor, this is what I'm planning on doing, the assessor said, well, no, that's not right. You have to do it this way, which we created a big problem because I think the student was prepared, ready. She knew what she had to do. She had the right model. She was ready to go. But then the assessor moved the goalpost on her based on their personal view of what the assessment should have been rather than the assessment criteria.
So that's always your nightmare person.
Created a big problem for this
Yeah.
poor girl. So, yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you, Kerry. That sounds like a nightmare. You probably
It
not put the
was.
damage there with the student there. Anyone else got a nightmare person from your group? We only had 2 groups, didn't we?
Go on, Coretta.
Okay.
Coretta's our nominated spokesperson.
Oh, perfect. Nothing like-
So yeah, on behalf of Philip, Sharon, and Coretta, we have
yeah, that's a good disclaimer.
a person, an assessor who is not flexible, who is not willing to move with the students or make any differences based on the student's need, who's just fixed on something and wants it that way and will not shift the goalpost or will not make any exemptions or any criteria to suit the assessor, the student's needs. So we have that as a nightmare assessor who is not flexible. We also have someone who is not organized, who comes in without being prepared, doesn't have the assessment materials, and is just a problem to the students. So that could be a nightmare assessor. And for place, we have Zoom. It could be hard because sometimes with Zoom, you want to see your students, you want to see their facial expressions, and as teachers, we're all talking about how it's hard to get the students to turn on their cameras. They want to stay remote and want to stay that way. And so it can be hard to assess their body language and see what's going on. So if you were to do an assessment of your class, you would be missing some points because you can't see them. Also, a noisy place could be a nightmare for an assessment. If you don't want it that way, it could hinder the process of assessment. And for process, we have nightmare process. It could include one which is not flexible, one which is not organized, and one which is not clear, ambiguous. Yeah, that could all be nightmare process for an assessment.
So it's very much about confusion, isn't it? You know, confusion and your choices of environment and place and process of those things that contribute to that. Thank you, Coretta, for speaking up on behalf of the gang. That's it's always good stuff to do that. Now, what about room 1? I mean, Kerry, Nathan, and Sharon. We've heard. I think we've heard one nightmare person from you, but what have you got there? A couple of examples from those 3.
I'll add the nightmare place, and then I think Nathan can probably talk about the nightmare process, maybe, if he wants to. Nightmare place, we do a lot of assessments on like accounting software, and if the equipment, the computers can't log on for some reason, can't access the software, not connected to the printers, this is like on campus when we're doing an assessment on campus, that makes it an absolute nightmare. Running around like a chook, calling IT because the students can't log on, they've forgotten their password, or the equipment's not working for some reason. So that in the past has been a nightmare place for me as far as conducting an assessment goes, relying on equipment that's not reliable.
And cloud-based software.
Yeah.
Reckon Hosted is notorious for it. It's just it freezes on you, it slows down. And,
that's why you need to go to Xero. I did see.
Well, yeah, I'm on the way. Yeah, I've been given that advice, but yeah, it's good to hear that from a third party who's also an accountant. So, yeah, I reckon we'll do that. What about place? That was the place, wasn't it? And we had
that was a place.
And process. You had Nathan had one. Was that right? You just
can't hear you, Nathan.
Bloody mute.
You have to unmute yourself, Nathan.
Maybe can I do that? Let's see.
Yeah, you can unmute me.
No, I can't.
If you go to the participants list, Mick, down the bottom, participants list, and click on that, or participants, then can you unmute Nathan from there?
I've only got ask to unmute.
Do that, ask to unmute, because it'll come up on your screen.
No joy. The other thing is you can hit the space bar, I think. That should do it. Because you were talking before. Oh, there we go.
G'day.
There
Sorry
we are.
about that.
That's all right.
I just had my boss call me.
Oh, well, that's yeah, fair enough. We probably could have helped you there. Feed you some lines.
Yeah, no. All good. He was just concerned about some units. That's all.
That's not Mick Varney, is it?
Mick Villani, no. He's just a trainer and assessor now. He's no longer manager.
Oh, okay, yeah. I got Mick into teaching.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No, you're right.
Now you had a nightmare for us. I think Sharon suggested that you had a nightmare for us.
Yeah. So, look, coming back from probably my personal experience. My personal experience with just basic absorbing knowledge, because I think everyone's on a different level personally, and everyone learns differently. Everyone learns on you got the kinetic, your visual, your audio, and when you're in a environment where you don't absorb as much information as you should, say on Zoom and stuff, and you're a far better learner in the classroom, because you've got that personal connection with other students. You've got that personal connection with your teacher or trainer. I just think a lot of people won't absorb the same amount of information, or the student won't absorb the same amount of information as you would generally in a classroom, depending on the person, of course, as well. Yeah, that's just a personal experience, just from my end. I do have another student though, and she, when I enrolled her, she put down that she had no, mental issues and stuff. And a couple of months down the track, I started noticing symptoms, not symptoms, but signs of, I don't know, maybe Asperger's, but no one could put their finger on it. She never said anything. Her employers never said anything. And I just have to work with the student, because I do a lot of one-on-one, and just sort of understanding the student, because I couldn't do the assessment with her. She had to physically do it on her own. She couldn't accept what I had to say or help her with. She had to read the resource and then do the assessment. Whereas I couldn't sit there and read the resource with her. She had to do it on her own for some reason. I couldn't understand why, but look, she did well without my, intervention. But she just felt anxiety as soon as we started talking about it. So that was a little bit of a nightmare, but I learned to live with it, because as a trainer and assessor, you kind of have to mold to your student as well.
Yeah, it's a really good story. I mean, because you often have those thoughts, what's going on with this person.
You do.
And
but they do learn in a way.
Yeah.
Everyone learns in a different way.
They sort of have to accept their foibles in a way too. I had a similar student in diploma vet I taught last year, and he challenged me on everything. Challenged me on definitions, and we had a 45-minute argument about the meaning of the word virtual in virtual classrooms. And I was just thinking, oh my God. And so I tried everything that I could to kind of explain it. And in the end, it was another resource that he tracked down and he said, yeah, I see what you're saying now, but it did take a long time to get to that particular point. But yeah, you've just got to really kind of run with that, haven't you? You can't.
You got to know your student. You got to get to know them. And it takes a little bit of time. You don't know it instantly. And once you've had those few sessions, you get the gist. I think a lot of us, as trainers and assessors and teachers and so forth, we do have that second, that fifth sense. We do have that, and we pick it up, but it takes us a while to pick it up.
Yes, and often we run with the deficit model where we look at their kind of issues or barriers when often they come into us as fully formed adults many times, and even those kids have had successes, some successes. So how do we build on those or their particular experiences and as well, and use them as models for other students too, their resilience and whatever. So yeah, beautiful. Okay, well, there's just a little. I might email you this so you can have a look at it. But we did have a little bit of a answer sheet for this one. If I can find it. Yeah. Cool. So these are all possible things that could come up, depending on your kind of range of experience. I won't sort of go through it, but you can see there's lots and lots of different. And not knowing the topic, I had a nightmare. The students who just weren't interested in the class. It was a vet and schools class. They didn't want to be there. They should have been in vet and schools automotive because that's what they were interested in. They drew pictures of cars all the time. Every time they did an assessment was about cars. That's what they should have been in. And that's what they ended up in the next year, which was good. But I just could not get through them at all. So it's very difficult. We had this one, didn't use the assessment tool. So that one you mentioned about redoing it. Probably didn't have any of those. We don't necessarily see so much of that now. But someone did mention no preparation there, which was interesting as well. And then a couple there not really understanding the cohort that you're in, or the process doesn't allow them to understand what's required. And sometimes the nightmare processes have an opportunity to rehearse and practice that stuff. And time is often an issue there, particularly with bits and pieces, but that time to rehearse in a formative assessment component is an important thing. All right, so hopefully we're going to avoid all those nightmares. And so I want to now ask you, in terms of getting past nightmares, what the unit is that when you saw this project and opportunity, what the unit was that you intended to work on or draft or improve or build assessment tasks for. Have you got one in mind? I think that was one of the first things we asked you to do. And at this stage, people often considering what it could be. But you're shaking your head, nodding your head there, Sharon. So I think you've got one.
I was thinking I've got a payroll unit that probably needs a rewrite. Assessment tools need a rewrite. That was one that I've got a couple of possibilities. That was one. I've got another one that I know next year we won't be using the same assessment tool for. It's called Process Financial Transactions and Extract Interim Reports. Sounds very exciting, doesn't it?
It does. Oh, I love. I love accounting.
Yeah,
I'm a Libran. So
so that's another one I'm tossing around, except that's a clustered unit with another. That's clustered in with another unit, and I sometimes find hard to write assessments for clustered units. The assessments become so big. Either that or
feel free to have a crack at that.
Yeah,
might be an opportunity to get.
Do we just have to pick one, Mick, or was it two?
Well, look, I reckon one's going to be a bit easier because there's the knowledge and the performance, but it's just about every assessment has got that in it. So I think we stick with the one to keep it easy. But if you wanted to go down a clustered route, then that would be fine.
I think I might go the payroll unit then because that needs a bit of a rewrite. It's a bit cumbersome.
Is it cert 3?
4.
4. Thank you. Anyone else?
I had two that I sort of looked at.
Oh, good on you.
Ones that we did develop in the Cert 2, but I feel still that they need some improvement.
Yes.
I had the contribute to health and safety of others. Has a role play in it. Yeah. And wanted to improve on the actual role play.
Yep.
For ideas to make a role play more interesting. I know it's a bit hard sometimes. Also, the other one I thought of was braid hair.
Now we're talking.
if anyone's interested in learning how to braid. We actually did everything from start to finish on this one, but I do feel like there could be a project or something in there, something a bit extra. We actually did all the videos ourselves. We had Brad join us and he helped film everything, and we did all sorts with that. So I think the practical side of it's okay, but yeah, I feel like it needs more.
The
It's
knowledge.
a great unit. So
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Something that you know excites you, and then you can move back to the apply
improve
policy
it,
and
make it more
procedure too.
interesting. They love the braiding and everything and the practical, but I think a nice project might be good as well, because we only really assess them at the moment on doing it. So the practical side of it, and then there's a quiz. So yeah.
I saw a wonderful meme yesterday, which was about 12 AFL players with dreadlocks, and I was asking you to vote who carried the dreadlocks the best, who was the best dreadlock. So that could be good fun. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Here I have my 2 units that I've been thinking about since I saw your email about this. Initially, the units I was thinking about, I had a discussion with my manager, and after the discussion with her, one of them was changed. We felt like this unit of research and apply evidence to practice will be a good one to look at the assessments, because we've had some feedback from students saying the assessments are kind of unclear. They need a lot of support with that. So we just thought we should look at it and see if there was something else that could be done. Just go through the assessments thoroughly and see if there's any improvement that needs to be identified. So that's a knowledge-based one. And then the second unit is infection control, skill-based, comply with infection prevention and control policies, which is big for nurses and big with our current trend now with COVID. So I felt like that'll be a good one to look at, the skills that we use as to train the skills that we expect from our students when they finish their nursing program, as far as infection control is concerned, because that's something we are very careful and mindful about at the moment. So I thought I'll look at those 2.
Look, I think you're really brave taking on the policies one, because that's one of my pet issues. Is this every unit you look at says something around do it in accordance with policies and procedures. And so as a content and assessment writer, where are those policies and procedures? What are they? And often we don't have those. And in our content we don't provide them. And sometimes when we write learning content, we create the policies. We go and find them and adapt them. Because we don't really immerse students in what those policies and procedures are and assess them, I don't think, truly with those. So I reckon that's a really, really good one, Coretta. The other one, the research one, is a good one too, because I think it's a one around, building students' capacity to solve their own sources of information, where they can find information, how they can evaluate it, how they can apply it. So it's a really nice one because it fits into professional and continuous improvement on their practice that will help them, once they get into the workforce. So they're both rippers. Are they both diplomas?
Yeah, both are diplomas, yeah.
All right. They're beauties. Fantastic. That's a really nice variety so far. Anyone else?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You go.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. So I was thinking of redoing the participate in environmental sustainability. Right now, the one that we deliver is just one assessment, and it's just separated into 3 categories. Generally, we try and make it, and there's no answer questions either. It's just a research project.
Right. Yep.
I just feel as though a lot of the cohort that we do get they don't want to do research questions. They just want to read the resource. They want to answer the written assessment, and that's, and then maybe do an observation demonstration or a third party report as ways of, getting information through. So yeah, I just don't think the cohort for this particular unit at the moment is liking it at all. So it's something I want to change. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds to me like, I reckon you could have a lot of fun with that one, because if you turn it into a presentation, then students might be able, this is just an idea. If you turn it into a presentation, students can then see one another's research and get some benefit from it, so that they do it, even if it's a 5-minute presentation, and they do.
Yeah, and we do have that, and
okay,
that's something that was in the previous resource that we used to use, where they had to do a presentation. But I think this is more contextualized towards the workplace students rather than classroom.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I have to work towards, because
it's more specific to their work, their employer.
Yeah, it's one-on-one in the workplace. Trying to do, trying to get them to do a presentation on their own to no one probably isn't.
It's probably not going to work, is it? But it could be a presentation to the boss around improvements you could make.
Yeah, in the cooking industry, the bosses are just more interested about the money. That's they just want them to work. They want them to do their job, and they want to see the qualification.
Or maybe the research could be finding a good boss.
Good luck.
No fun. Oh dear.
Yeah, hospitality industry, mate. It's a tough nut to crack. A lot of the guys are like 16. They left school early. They don't want to do research projects. All they want to do is be able to answer those questions that they've learnt and move on to the next part.
Yeah. Okay. So it's coming up with a creative way of meaning that particular unit. And I spent 5 years in the industry, so I hear that.
The cohort itself is very, they're hands-on. They're a hands-on cohort. They're not, they don't want to go researching things, but they do in the way. You've got the resource book, which has all the information in it, which they'll read and obtain and process. But at the same time, they don't want to go over the top with it. That's all.
Yeah. So it's that real dilemma we've got of instilling an appreciation for knowledge in a way, isn't it? That kind of permeates every unit, where people really just want to be able to get on, but to understand that knowledge relates to that skill. Yeah. And well, like, who knows? You couch it, where is knowledge useful in that situation? Improving the way you work, improving the way that you the ingredients you use, improving the options. It's almost like you have to find the connection with that to the professional. Yeah.
A lot of these guys are like, they use their 5 senses, sight, smell, taste, and this is what they're designed to do. It's
a good thing, really, cooking.
Yeah, it's like getting a racehorse to climb a tree, really. It's good luck to you.
Yeah, but it is also about appreciating the industry too, isn't it? And that's really hard to do when it's hard to see anything beyond the next 2 months. So I appreciate that. But anyway, I got some ideas, so I'll look forward to that. That's a beauty. Thank you. So Philip.
We've got 28 units of competency, which is quite a lot, but I suppose, there's actually 35, but you've got to have a minimum of 28. Look, off the top of my head, I'm thinking apply sheet laminates by hand.
And what would be the reason behind that?
Because basically there's nothing formalized with it.
Yeah, okay.
So basically, like I'll instruct another teacher on what's expected to be done on a ply sheet, laminates by hand. There's only 4 of us. So there's 2 at Frankston and 2 at Dandenong. So I feel that if we could have some sort of formalisation, then we can make sure that everyone's on the same.
I see. Don't have a task
Right.
now. Is that what you mean?
There are tasks, but they're under interpretation by the teachers.
Right. Okay. So it's getting, so making them consistent.
Yeah,
Right, and so your marking guides and all that stuff. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, to formalise it. Yeah,
Are we talking a knowledge and a
it's
demonstration or all in one?
the knowledge. The knowledge is in a book, so we've already got a book that they do the knowledge base. But as far as the practical element, it'd be good if we had something in concrete.
So the knowledge questions come out of the book.
Yeah. So the knowledge. So we've got workbooks that the students get given. It's got so it's got the actual information at the front of the book, and then it's got the student. So it's got the student resource, and then it's got the workbook at the back, where they answer the questions. So
right, I see. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So that sounds like a good one. All right. So have I asked everybody? I missed anyone? Jane, sorry.
Keep forgetting Jane.
I know. Sorry about it. It's not personal. Just have to unmute yourself, Jane.
Sorry.
That's all right.
That's perfectly fine. Don't worry. I was looking at doing a unit called Investigate and Interpret Shapes and Measurement and Related Formulas. We do have 2 assistants. They're just low key. It's designing at the moment it's designing a skate park on graph paper.
Oh, yeah.
But we've had it for a few years now, and I think there are some limitations with it, and it would be a good one to change and alter into something else.
It sounds like they're having a good laugh there with that unit name, aren't they? Like it's that long.
Investigate and interpret shapes. So the shapes are,
That's
just general 2D and 3D shapes, and finding area volume of those shapes, which is the related formulas, and then designing things that you might find at a skate park, drawing them in and taking them from meters down to centimeters, and ratio on scaling them down onto graph paper.
So do you think that the skate park that context needs to be updated to something else that's relevant to all students?
One of the questions is draw some circles on the skate park to show trees, to show that you know what circles are. And I'm not happy with that. Most of the students go, are you serious? Do we really need to do this? And I just think it's a bit, some aspects of it are a bit not clear in the instructions, and then other parts of it are too simplified and could be a little bit more complicated to show they're demonstrated that they understand what shape is.
So you think you'd be improving it?
Yes.
Or rather than throwing it out and starting again.
So are we meant to start all over again? No, I'd like to. No, I'm happy.
I think it's whatever it's going to meet your need, I think.
Okay.
How I'm interpreting it.
I mean, I'm happy to kind of change the whole thing and just do something fresh, because we've had it for, 10 years or so. Or change it around and alter it a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to either way. But it's got to be an opportunity for you to, improve what it is you want to improve, or, fill a gap you've got now. So
yes. No, every time we do it, and I am working on it with a student, I just have to give them so much input before they do it. And I think this is not good enough. I shouldn't have to be giving this amount of input. We need to rewrite this so that it's clearer and they understand what they've got to do, because it's not clear. And I thought I shouldn't be having to give this much instruction before they do it.
That would have made a good nightmare.
Because they get to it and they go, and I always find that I'm having to turn over the page and it says that they have to draw a zigzag edge to one side, and then that enables them of this rectangle, which is the outline of a skate park, and then those zigzag edges then give them angles, and then they need to measure the angles to demonstrate that they can use a protractor to measure angles. And then they draw these little zigzag edge, like, you know, 0.5 centimetre or by 1 centimetre all the way along, which you can't measure with the protractor because your lines need to be this long at least to measure the angles, you know. So there's a lot of pre-talk that goes in, and I just get frustrated every time they do the assessment.
Yeah.
But because we have rolling enrolments, it's just as an individual comes up against doing that assessment, and I go, oh, need to update this assessment.
Well, it turns out the last learning journey was assessment one. We had a woman who did role plays around in aged care facility. And the role play was really to build some familiarisation with the cohort, because she felt that a lot of the younger adults had not had experience with really old residents. And so she had to do them personally, you know, like, so she was doing something like 30 or 40. So 30 or 40 role players explaining every detail. A whole unit was taken up with doing these at role plays and whatever. So I understand that frustration of explaining instructions regularly, and yours, if you've got deficiencies in it, makes it even worse because you're behind the 8 ball straight away. Yeah. Okay, I think I've got everybody now. So that's fantastic. That's a really nice I really look forward to seeing what we've got. I probably should talk to you a bit about what the expectations are. And I think the easiest way to do that is maybe go to the actual document itself. Now, this is in Moodle, but it's probably something I'll email you, so that you've got a copy of this. This is the overall, and then I'll talk a bit about what's the first task up front. So it's called an action-based project. So what you're essentially doing is talking to your manager, as Coretta's already done that hard work, and then documenting what the outcome of those discussions are in terms of what you'll do with your unit as part of this unit. So this is what it's kind of all about. It's got to be worth it for you. It's got to be some stake in it for you, and you've all expressed that. All of you have got some issue that you want to address. So I think opportunity is the key here. I don't think that's going to be an issue. And it sounds like all of you talked about not only the assessor experience, but student experience. So you probably, you understand that fairly straight ahead. So there's the instructions for our whole time together. So it says you identify a skills, knowledge-based and skills-based unit. But I think if you can find, most units will have will have a combination of those things. You'll have some knowledge, which might be in a lower level or not. So yesterday I spent all weekend doing a networking unit, and it was pretty much hands-on, install home network, but there was quite a bit of knowledge behind that, you know, and knowledge was mainly around working with a client, finding out what network they wanted, understanding the network so you can make those recommendations. They're kind of those sorts of things. So I think if you can find one unit, that's fine. But if you can't, then yeah, maybe you want to use 2. You don't have to complete them both, but if you do you've got to do 3 assessment tasks. So if you do 1 for one unit and 2 for another, that'd be okay. But if you can find them all in the one, that's all good. But because you do different sorts of assessments, you might have a chat to your manager about the project. So this is the unit I want to do. The assessments I'm thinking about. And then we've got initiation phase where you get sign off and approval for your manager and supervisor to go ahead. So they've got some buy-in in what you're going to do. And Coretta mentioned that was the first thing she did, which was a good place to start. And so this has got to be done by the end of workshop 3, which will be in the next week. And I'll show you that it's quite small. So through the journey, you do a series of different assessment instruments relevant to your unit. And so there's about 5 of those, but you'll probably only use about 3 of those. The first, as we do those, you can do them quite rough, draft form, that's no problem. And then you might shake down from that. You only use 3 of those assessments, but it's an opportunity to explore 5 different things. And then once you've completed your project, again, get signed off from the manager. That'll be probably getting them to have a look at what you've created, maybe give me some feedback, and then submit that through Moodle at the end of the project. So as we go, you've got to get the initiations phase. That's off the bat. when you submit that, or you decide, just send me the unit of competencies. I'm going to have a bit of a look at it and get a bit familiar with it. At the end, you'll do 3 assessment instruments for your unit, and you'll sign off the sheet. But they're not so important at the moment. This is the one. This is probably the one we've got to get to pretty much straight away. And I've got another sheet here somewhere which shows you what's on that initiation sheet. So this is the
Share your
form.
screen, Mick?
Am I sharing?
No, not at the moment.
Oh, what a whacker.
Yeah, we haven't seen anything.
Oh, bloody hell. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I told you about brain fog, didn't I? So this is what I was talking about. Sorry. So yeah. And so I was saying this is the bit we're up to at the moment to get done by next week. And then I was showing you what that form looks like. And I'll email you these straight after. They are in Moodle, but I'll send them to you so you've got a copy. So name and date. What's the reason for selecting those units? You've given me that justification, so a sentence is there for most of you. How creating a set of new assessment instruments impact the learning outcome? Well, I think you've all addressed that when you explain what it is that your unit was for. For some of you, it was this cohort. It's not really hard to engage with that particular thing. Others, it frustrates me when I did that assessment. And when will you have the project completed? That's an interesting one. What that means is, I don't know what that means, to be honest, but I would imagine that you would complete that by the end of the learning journey, which I think we'd probably give you to the end of November. But if you need more time, that's no worries. And that's it, really. Name, signature, whatever, as long as we get what the unit is. There's nowhere really for you to put that unit, I've just noticed, but you could drop that unit in, whatever the unit code and whatever, and maybe submit that to with that particular unit, and away you go. So I'll send you an email with that at the end of the session, but is that kind of clear?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh yeah, that's the first step. And then each week we create a new type of assessment for your unit, or maybe for a unit that's more important to you, if that type of assessment doesn't actually fit what it is that you're kind of doing. I'm not going to talk too much about compliance or whatever. I'll talk quickly about units of competencies to give you a bit of a help to kind of get started and what the structure of competency is kind of all about, and how we can sort of start to think quickly about how it might look all together. So each of our competencies have got different things in them to describe, the work activities, standards of performance, assessment requirements, knowledge or evidence, and sometimes there's quite a big overflow between the two of them. A lot of people like to put questioning into the demonstration of a physical task because it helps contextualize that knowledge and see what students are understanding and what the evidence that has to be gathered that will assist the assessor to determine the judgment of competency. Now, from my experience, the two main things that assessments tend to fall down on is, yes, the instructions, as you kind of mentioned, but also the instructions to the assessors to how to determine whether there's competency. So I told you I was working on a networking unit at the weekend, and the assessment task, I saw the question was pretty good, but the actual evidence to the assessor to decide that was a series of web pages. I think, well, I know a little bit about this topic, but I don't really know. I don't really know how that's going to help me. And I think somebody mentioned the old TAFE night classes I think that was you, Philip, wasn't it? So I did a couple of those, and I taught myself, learned a few skills on how to upgrade and build a computer from scratch, which were, and I'm no nerd, I can tell you. So I thought I'd show you an assessment so we can have a bit of, this is the assessment I was working on. Oops. This is the assessment I was working on here. So when we get to training.gov to have a look at our unit, the first thing to make sure is we're working on the unit that's current. That's the one that's so we might be sometimes working on the one prior and haven't moved over, but we need to see if it's when it was superseded and we're teaching it out or we're moving on. So that's the first thing to check, that you are working with the right unit. And a lot of people don't do that and end up with a bit of a mess. It'll tell you about the training packages and qualifications that are in the unit, and yours will no doubt be there. And then you can download either the unit of competency and the assessment required, which are now separated, as you know. They were all together once. And so let's look at these various components of an assessment and see how that might help you. So the application. This kind of really tells you what the job task is. So they'll be all different, but it's a kind of way of really summing up what the job is, so you know exactly what it's kind of about, and a little bit about who that might apply to. So job, who'd be doing it? That's really important. Then we get to the kind of breakdown of the actual unit as well. And the elements are really the kind of overall outcomes of the job described above, but in terms of discrete parts of that job. So this follows a really classic breakdown of a unit of competency. Get ready to do the job, prepare, do the job again sometimes, and then finish the job, clean up, evaluate, test, whatever it might be. So variations on this theme across the trades and across the disciplines, but really most units tell a story of that task in the application from go to woe. So once you know that story, you can relate it really quickly from your own experiences of what it looks like. And this is a really good opportunity to think of the unit in a big picture and get a sense of what might need to be assessed before you even look at these things. Because these just tell you some of those things are going to be in that particular outcome. And there'll be double ups, and not these things aren't always really well written. So you have to really kind of work a little bit hard. But these three things can really help you. And sometimes what we kind of do is put these into one task, or we might do that task and check it with someone, supervisor, manager, client, whatever it was. And then we get the go ahead to do the particular job. So in that sense, there's a bit of soft skills in there, foundation skills that apply. Where the student needs to maybe do some questioning because they're talking with the client to get sign off. They're explaining and finding what they already do. And there might be some self-reliance, some self-management skills, so they can do the job by applying skills and knowledge and be independent particular things. And there might be some learning in there. So particularly here, they're talking about products. So networking products change, need to research that you're up to date and that you've got. So that's where that research stuff comes in that you mentioned, Nathan. And then we get to the assessment requirements, and they get broken down to, things you know and love, skills and knowledge, pretty much, what we call performance now. And this really just outlines to you exactly what it is that you have to see the student to be able to do. So sometimes in here it'll explain that it needs to be seen on 2 or 3 occasions or in 2 and 3 different environments. So the facilitate e-learning unit that I do, it says that a trainer has to facilitate in different virtual environments. So they have to do it in Zoom and maybe instant messenger or email or whatever. And then they have to then do it in 2 different instances of a delivery. So 4 all up. And then here's the knowledge that we've got to see, some of which might be actually implicit in the actual task itself. So we might see in their documentation, for example, that which of the client that they've provided information about the client's business domain, for example. So we might not necessarily need a specific question about that. So typically what often happens with rip and read assessments is that, people will do a knowledge unit on its own and try and knock over as many as they can. But if we can get them in the skills part of the performance, that's great, because we can ask a question while they're doing it, then that's even better. Or in the form or documentation they've got to complete, then, away we kind of go. And these are the conditions, is how it's got to work. This is everything you'd need to be able to complete the unit, but you need to provide. So quite a bit of detail in there. And if you don't know the unit, it took me bloody hell all day to work this out. But the main things that worried me when here were things like this. How do you make that kind of relevant and real? If you've got those workplace policies and procedures, brilliant. If you don't have that. So all those kinds of things, the documentation about equipment and organisation procedures, very much about currency, those kind of things. How do you build those in and provide sufficient examples so students got some direction to be able to do that? So my advice would be look at these and just remind yourself what the story of the competency is trying to tell you in terms of I'm going from go to woe to do this specific task that's kind of encapsulated here. That's a really good starting point because it will then help you think about how it might be going to be applied. Because I mentioned before, you know, I skipped over the compliance slide. And compliance is really something that you can't really choose to do. It's legally required and your institute has to perform that. But, you know, we often see that as an onerous part of our work, but compliance also creates quite a bit of opportunity if you're prepared to, you know, if you've got an opportunity to justify what you do. So when I had my ITO, we were doing a lot of e-learning. The auditor had no experience in e-learning, as not many of them do. And so he was going to knock off the assessment task. He didn't understand it. We had to actually physically explain to him what the model of how they were facilitated, how they were assessed in a virtual environment, which we didn't need to document instructions to the students, for him to understand and get the model and see it anew and then say, oh, okay, this is fine, to kind of understand it. So that's something that you have to kind of get right in your own head as to how it's going to look. And then, you know, you're going to find. And that often comes from the opportunities that you've already identified as to where your assessments need a bit of an improvement. So I was going to talk a bit about principles of assessment and rules of evidence, but I think you've probably been hit over the head with that sort of stuff over the years. So what we might do is next week we might sort of start with that and do a bit of an activity, have a bit of fun with that one here. So I'm going to finish with this video and I'm going to share this with you. And let me just stop sharing and share again. This is a really nice video. It's an interview with, well, not a nice video, but it's an interview with an auditor. And I'll have to turn the video clip because I won't be able to capture this. And so they talk about when they look at assessments, what are the main issues that they see. And I think this is probably better advice than I can give you. So I'm going to stop the recording once this starts because of copyright. But is there any other issues that you'd like to address? I'm really glad to meet you all and that you're all comfortable to complete before next week.
Yes, thanks, Mick.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Great. Good on you guys. Well, lovely to meet you all. I'll be in touch with the recording details and all that sort of stuff and PowerPoints and I'll show this video and feel free to leave whenever you're ready. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
In this section, we're going to explore what are the common issues that are found at audit regarding assessments. I'll hand over to Nita for the first question.
Thanks. So when we think about the assessment system and the materials and the tools, it's a bit